Hey everyone, today's video is going to be a continuation from yesterday, and I'll be going over the Dream Awakenings and buffs of the other 4 units in the new JP Slime rerun. But anyways, starting with Santa Milam, her skill was dropped down 3 seconds, as well as an increase in the art it gives. Pretty good I guess for some extra arts, but nothing crazy. Her arts had a small modifier increase, the duration was increased by 5 seconds, and the fire resist debuff was increased by 10%. Pretty nice for a fire resist debuff, and it lasts fairly long, all things considered. Her true art had a fairly big modifier increase, as well as change in her duration and the amount of arts it gives, from 30 to 60 now, which means it'll be a lot better art gen wise. It could have been slightly higher art gen wise, but it is what it is. For her Dream evolutions, Crimson Dream will give all fire allies 30% damage up, whereas Luminous Dream will give herself 2 arts a second and 50% attack when over 80% HP. It's pretty clear to see that Luminous Dream is going to benefit her slightly more, since it'll make her roll through her true art and art a bit faster, although the AoE 30% fire damage from Crimson Dream isn't actually too bad. It's just that I'd rather have Milam run a bit better herself. As for her true weapon, it's a 5-star heal, and it heals the lowest HP allies' health by 15%, and then all allies' health by 4% a second for 6 seconds with a 40-second CT. When it's used by Santa Milam, it doubles the healing amount of the equip, as well as increasing HP by 5%. To be honest, on Milam, this equip is actually pretty good for healing. It has a fairly short CT, and it'll heal the team 48% health, with the lowest HP ally healing 78% HP. But since Santa Milam herself isn't too great, by default her true weapon isn't much better, especially with the strong heal being tied to only herself. But if you want to use her in a team, this heal equip is going to be pretty strong, but I personally wouldn't waste rainbow gems on it. Overall though, Santa Milam's buffs just made her slightly better. She's still not too great as a unit, but for what she does, some newer players could benefit from her, since art genning and crit buffing together isn't super common, besides the big names like War God Fen. But yeah, she's not too optimal, but you can at least run her in some easier stages if you want to have fun. Anyways, moving on to Santa Shion, her skill CT had a very slight decrease, although the BE output from her skill increased a ton. Nothing insane, although the BE output is going to be noticeably higher. Her arts had a decent rise in modifier, and that's about it. Still just as mediocre, although her skill giving more BE output makes it a bit better, but not by much. Her true art modifier had a heavy increase from 63,000 to 100,000, as well as getting 20% more accuracy. This is going to make her a lot better in terms of damage. As we've seen in Global, her modifier increase has her in quite a number of LBs, just from how quick her true art is and how high in damage it is. Her accuracy will be nice I guess against high evasion enemies and mines and such, which is good too. For her passive, the stacking passive was increased by 10%, so a total of 50% more damage and attack. It's a pretty strong buff as well, although it does take some arts to start up. It'll definitely make her a lot stronger if you're going to run her in a sustained fight. As for her Dream evolutions, her Verdant Dream increases her arts by 100 at the start of the quest, and arts by 3 a second, whereas her Spectral Dream increases damage to light enemies by 100. Out of the two, it's pretty hard to say since they're around the same level. Verdant Dream is really strong for sustaining with that innate art gen, whereas the Spectral Dream is insane but only against light enemies. It kind of depends, but it can go either way. For general use though, Verdant Dream will be very good, although in stages against light enemies, Spectral Dream will make her hit like a tank. For her true weapon, it's a 5-star defense, and for 12 seconds, it increases allies' damage resist by 15%. Allies at or below 50% HP get 25% damage resist instead, with a 25-second CT. When used by Santa Shion, the damage resist from the equip is doubled, and it increases HP by 5%. It's actually fairly solid and sustained, especially if you're below 50% HP, although it is exclusive to Shion. But with her stacking making her meant to be used in sustain, if you're gonna run Shion in a sustained fight, I'd say this true weapon is worth it, although without her, it's fairly mid. Overall though, Shion got a much needed buff on her side. Her damage is going to be a lot more impressive pretty much everywhere, and her defense item is going to make her team support much better if she's being ran on a sustained team. Her true weapon makes up for her lack of team support in her kit, and in all, she's a much better unit to run in sustained fights. She's not a bad pickup to be honest, although her lack of sustainability besides BE output kind of hurts her a bit. Her Verdant Dream tries to salvage it, but that's kind of just it. Next is New Year's Rimuru. His skill now gives 60 arts rather than 50. Slightly better, now at 6 arts a second passively, which is pretty nice. His arts had a small modifier increase and 5% increase in the stats buff for the team. Nothing too crazy, although it's a slightly better heal of sorts. His true art had a modifier increase, a 10-second longer duration, and 10% more stackable physical damage. It's actually a pretty good buff, and he can pretty much get one more stack in with that extra 10 seconds. So like roughly 5 to 6, maybe 7 stacks of his true art, which will equal anywhere from 300 to 420% physical damage for the team. And for nearly any team, at least physical team, that's going to be insanely strong. As for his dream evolutions, his Aqueous Dream increases his equip CT speed by 10% and increases all allies max HP by 10%, whereas Spectral Dream increases status resist by 30% and crit damage by 60%. Out of the two, Spectral Dream is probably going to be better with 60% more crit damage, and on top of his passive 50% crit damage, that equals out to 110% crit damage, and that's not even including the damage buffs from his true art. It's basically like an extra stack from his true art, which will help him to do a bit more damage. Aqueous Dream is more so focused on team support, which is nice, but with how New Year's Rimuru is built, it won't benefit him as much as the extra damage will. Although in the right comps, I'm sure you could find use for it, but I wouldn't personally choose it. For his true weapon, it's a 5-star support, and for 10 seconds, all allies get 4 arts a second and 40% damage, which is stackable, with a 50-second CT. When used by New Year's Rimuru, he increases his damage by 40% and defense by 5%. This is actually a pretty good true weapon, especially for New Year's Rimuru. That extra damage is gonna be pretty helpful for him, but with the equip being stackable, it's fairly interesting. It's almost like they want you to use dupes of it, since there isn't enough equip CT to consistently get it back while it's still active. And for it only being 20 rainbow gems, I wouldn't say it's the worst equip to get dupes for on a dark team, especially if you have some rainbow gems to spare. Although Ein's Cloak does make up for the damage if that's what you're looking for, but I wouldn't go all out for it, or at least multiple of them. At the very least, just grab one for New Year's Rimuru since it'll benefit his damage quite a bit, or even just for collection purposes. Overall though, New Year's Rimuru is pretty strong as a physical damage buffer. He can give a ton of damage to the team, and not only that, but with his new buffs, Dream Evolutions, and True Weapon, he can put out a lot more damage himself. I would say he could actually be a usable DPS in later stages of the game, especially with his innate crit. His art is helpful as well for that little bit of team survivability on teams that might need it. I'd personally hope for this Rimuru as well if he does come back to global. For the very last unit though, it's gonna be New Year's Milim. Her skill had a slight percentage increase in attack, nothing insane. Her arts had a modifier increase as well as a fairly substantial accuracy increase. I do wish the damage increased a bit more, but the accuracy is very welcome for those niche stages if you want to use her on them as a DPS. Although 60% accuracy might not be enough, but it is still very usable. When we got her on global, for her buff we did get her getting 80% damage rather than 60%, so that would have been a bit better if they decided to give it to her, but it's fine regardless. For her true art, it had a pretty strong modifier increase, as well as a 3-second longer duration of her light resist debuff, which was buffed by 20% to now be 70%. In all, it's actually a lot better now. That extra 20% light resist down is very strong and makes her and others output a lot more damage. Everyone still nuking with Saitama is going to be very happy to hear about this. Her large increase in modifier means that she's also going to be outputting a lot more damage herself, which is very nice. Her passive had a slight increase in AoE attack by 10%, nothing crazy but always welcome. As for her dream evolutions, her Crimson Dream increases all allies accuracy by 20%, whereas her Luminous Dream is going to increase all light allies arts gauge by 2 a second. It's pretty obvious the AoE arts gauge from Luminous Dream is going to be the better pick here. While AoE accuracy is pretty good, it doesn't come close to the usefulness of team-wide archgen, and it'll benefit Milim as well, which is always a plus. The only place Crimson Dream might even be remotely usable is if you're going to be nuking a high evasion boss and the team needs that extra bit of accuracy. As for her true weapon, it's a 5-star magic, and for 12 seconds, it increases her damage to giant bosses by 70% with a 45-second CT. When used by New Year's Milim, it increases her arts by 3 a second and defense by 5%. Used on Milim, this equip is pretty strong for sustaining, although it's unfortunate the damage is tied to giant bosses. But without Summoner's Rotas and a lot of new content, it won't be any problem finding giant bosses. And paired with Luminous Dream, Milim is going to have 5 arts a second passively, which is very nice for her sustainability. I wouldn't personally grab it since it's not really anything too crazy, although if you see yourself using New Year's Milim and sustain, go for it. In all though, New Year's Milim's buff was basically trying to make her slightly more usable as a sustained DPS. She had always been used as a light nuke support with units like Saitama. She'll definitely benefit light nukes a lot more, especially with her passive 50 AoE archgen up at the start of the quest, and 20% more light resist down on her true art. As well as that, she's definitely slightly more usable in sustain as well. She now has a bit more self-argen with her true weapon and dream passive, and the modifier increase of her true art as well as increase in her light resist debuff makes her stronger as a DPS. So she has a slightly better nuke support, and in all, not the worst pickup, although maybe better for the more mid-tier to experienced players. That's it for the rest of the kits though. All of the units got some pretty good buffs in general. The best was probably New Year's Rimuru, since he can now not only stack more damage, but his true weapon and dream passives makes him do even more damage. Xion actually got some pretty useful buffs as well, so she'll be a lot more fun if you have her. New Year's Milam's entire buff was oriented around making her better in sustain fights, which isn't bad. And for Santa Milam, she's still kinda just a terrible unit. Although her heal true weapon is pretty strong on herself, but you have to use it on her, so yeah. Let me know your thoughts about the units though, as well as who you're gonna aim for from all the 8 units. I'm personally hoping for either Human Rimuru, New Year's Rimuru, or maybe even Xion. I'll try to go into depth about the new equips in another video, so stay tuned. If you did enjoy the video though, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.